As a number of eagle-eyed folks on Reddit picked up on, we've got some huge Cities Skylines 2 news for today. A new update is just dropped for the game that has a number of bug fixes, as well as some back-end changes that enable the upload and download of region packs, which will begin launching next week. Do know though that this update does not bring full support for the asset editor, though it seems like an important step in that direction. And this news comes a day before Cities Skylines 2's 1-year anniversary, and it's been an interesting year to say the least. So in this video, we'll go over the new CS2 update and talk about the release dates for the region packs. And at the end, I'll talk about the last year of Cities Skylines 2, reflect on how it's gone, and share how I think it's going to go in the future. I'll also let you know if I think it's worth playing the game today, if you already own it, and if you've been on the fence about picking it up. It's one of the questions that I'm asked multiple times per day, so I figure I'll just address it in this video. So we've got a lot to cover, so let's just jump right in. So let's begin by going over the bug fixes. You see this fairly innocuous looking building? This is the very first hotel to naturally spawn in Magnolia County. I'm really excited about this. The tourism bug has now been fixed, and you're going to start to see tourists and tourism occurring in your communities. It's been a bug that's bothered me since the game released, and it's finally fixed. But there are a couple of nuances to know about this. First and foremost, hotels are their own building category. So you're not just going to have an existing commercial site transform into a hotel. If you want to have hotels appear, you're going to either need to zone more commercial or decommission existing buildings. Now make sure that if you're going to decommission existing buildings, you're popping into your tourism info view and removing those buildings in areas that are highly desirable for tourism. So right here, you can see that the area that we worked on in the previous episode of Magnolia County is incredibly desirable for tourists now. So if I were to zone commercial in this area, there is a higher probability that I would receive a hotel in this area, but it's certainly not a guarantee. I've actually seen hotels spawning in interesting locations. So this is on the outside of that district. And over here in Charity Bay, we've got the exact same thing. We've got a hostel that has appeared off of Grand Avenue. Not enough customers. No one's renting a room, but one spawned over here. And if you've placed hotels yourself, like I placed a couple over here in Paradise Bay, you very well might see them fill in with companies. So we've got some hotel companies that have spawned over here near our hypermarket, which is really exciting to see. In addition to that, some of the info views here are now correct. There is now a seasonal weather effect, and we can actually test this out by changing the temperature. If we lower it to -50, you can see that the seasonal weather effect for tourism has dropped our attractiveness by 30%. So definitely cool to see that all of that is working, and it's working in real time now. It works in both directions, both with cold temperatures and with warm temperatures. Additionally, if you pop into your statistics, you're going to see some really interesting stuff. So taking a look at tourism right here, you can see that the number of hotel rooms that we have shot through the roof after December 2036. This is where I saved in the old version of the game. Then popping into the new one, you can see that the number of hotel rooms has shot through the roof. Same thing with tourists, although this one's more interesting. I'm not sure if these numbers were fudged in the past, but you can see that they plummet off a cliff, and now we have a rational looking number going forward. And for income, we start to see that now we're finally making a decent amount of money. So look forward to hotels spawning in your communities. Next, we have some more homelessness fixes. If you've had parks that have had tents stuck in them even after the homeless people are no longer in your parks, this update should free your parks of those tents. Now, bluntly, this is a difficult one for me to test because there are a ton of homeless people in my city. Not just that, the UI doesn't really give you much information about homelessness, so I can't click on this park and see if there are homeless people living here. And within the info views, there's really nothing about homelessness. So I really hope that that gets added at some point in the future. And I also know that one of the reasons I'm experiencing a lot of homelessness is a lack of low rent housing and not enough elementary schools. So I'm going to have to address those before I can see if the tents will disappear. But there is one quick way to validate this, and that's by hopping into the dev mode. And if we toggle homelessness and Thanos snap all of the homeless away, you'll notice that all the tents go away as well. So it is resolved, but you actually have to resolve homelessness in your city to see all those tents go away. And then I just wanted to pop into the info views for 1 second, because I feel like when you talk about the homelessness issue having some more resolution, you've got to take a look at the statistics. And you can see that there's something happening under the hood. more households are forming ever since we've had this update. So December is that time again, and you can see that there are more households. My overall population growth hasn't changed all that much. We've just seen more households. In fact, if anything, you can see that fewer citizens are moving in since I've just been letting this simulate for a while. Also noticed a gigantic uptick in the number of citizens moving away, followed by a precipitous decline and the death rate falling as well. And finally, I noticed that overall household wealth has been declining since the update has been applied to this save, which I think is a good thing. It has been a problem that everyone is wealthy in your city. So it looks like this is being resolved somewhat with this update, though that wasn't shown in the patch notes. Next, there have been some pathfinding fixes, and this is one that has really impacted a lot of people. See a lot of people commenting that vehicles are taking routes that don't make sense, and when you draw a bus line, they end up taking roads that are kind of nonsensical. So one way that you can test this, or that I can demonstrate this, is by drawing a new bus route. So in the past, when you'd make a new route, sometimes the buses would just kind of take crazy streets. They're now programmed to take straight routes, which is the preferential way of handling this in most instances. So I could add a waypoint here, and then in the past, when I would try to have a route go up here, it would sometimes meander through local streets and do crazy things. I can add a waypoint to prefer this street if I want now, and select different routes, and it will choose the most logical route every single time now, is what I've been noticing. So that should apply across the board, but it's really noticeable when you're drawing a bus route because now the routes make a ton of sense. You don't have to add as many waypoints. It's just, it feels like it's working right, which is fantastic. I feel like the best demonstration of this, though, is looking at traffic volumes. And what you can see right here is that the yellow routes have lower traffic volumes and the purple routes have higher traffic volumes. And you can see that the cars are consistently choosing to travel on arterials, highways, and collectors. And if you have appropriate roadway hierarchy, it's really easy to see exactly where the vehicles should be traveling and where they are traveling. And they're taking the appropriate routes, which is really exciting to see. Next, there have been some fixes for air pollution. In general, air pollution in your city will spread more now and dissipate more slowly. So here's the overall picture of what air pollution looked like in Magnolia County with the last build, and here's what it looks like now. And here's a closer area, a zoom in of the downtown Bend area, and what you can see is that the highway now has more air pollution around it. In addition to this, noise pollution has had some rebalancing as well, so that highways now produce slightly more noise than other types of roads. And just in general, there's been some balanced tweaks to it. So here's an overall view of noise pollution in the region before and the previous patch, and here's what it looks like now. And here's a zoom in of the downtown Bend area and the way that noise pollution has changed between the previous version of the game and this one. So you can see that you're now seeing slightly more noise pollution near the highways. So with this, you're likely going to need to add more sound walls around your highways, and it's going to add a little bit more strategy in terms of where you place residential uses, which in my opinion is welcome to see. Next, there are a number of bug fixes that I can't really categorize as anything besides silly bug fixes. Fixes to bugs like small cars or cars in general parking in motorcycle parking, that has now been fixed. Disaster response units are now able to reply to buildings that have had one of their sub-buildings burned down, but not the main building. In the past, you'd have the sub-building burned down, the main building still be standing, and the disaster response unit's not able to do anything. It was bizarre, but that's been fixed. And a strange bug where the number of workers and workplaces in the info views didn't line up with the workplaces and statistics has been fixed. So in the past, when you take a look at the number of employees in workplaces, you'd have a different number than if you were to look in the statistics. So now these numbers are the same, which is great to see. There is one place that you might think the numbers are wrong. If you take a look at the number of employed underneath population, that number is lower, but there's a bit of nuance there. The number of employed shows the number of people that live in your community that are employed. The number of people found underneath workplace availability is the number of people that are employees at all the businesses in your community. And that number includes people that are commuting in from the outside world. So the numbers are correct now. They do make sense. You just have to give it a little bit of thought because there's some nuance there. Next, there have been a number of user interface improvements. First, the info views are darker. It's not dark mode, but they're darker, so it's not flashing as white of a view at you, and it's much easier to read things and understand the different overlays, at least in my opinion. Next, when you're in your RCIO zoning info view, you'll now see empty buildings. So right here, you can see that I've got an empty commercial building. All the commercial buildings are glowing, but that empty building is black. Now, admittedly, I think that this is a little bit difficult to see. I really hope that at some point in time, we get the ability to turn down the zoning cell opacity. It's something that you could do with a mod, but it's really difficult to see because of that. But it is there now. So if you have the mod that allows you to turn down the zoning cell opacity, you'll be able to see this, and it's actually really helpful. This right here is an empty hostel. You can see right here, no company is in this building. It's available for rent. Next, the European theme icon has been updated to make it a little bit easier to differentiate from the North American theme icon. And that to me is not the biggest change with this. The biggest change is that when you go into any of the zoning menus, you now see what theme you're selecting with a little icon in the corner. So if you have both of these there, you can see Europe and you can see that this is the North American theme. And this change extends not just here, but also underneath the landscaping menu. And I think it's really helpful to be able to see that this alder, for instance, is a European specific tree, and that right here, this linden, that's a North American tree, because I constantly forget which continent those trees are on, because it's not like we don't have alders in America or there are no linden trees in Europe. They've gone back and forth, but this is a way that you're able to see it within the game. One thing I wanted to point out is that when you click on a building, the little icon in the corner showing you what kind of zoning it is, that hasn't changed. So that's something that I do hope is improved in the future, because that is difficult to see. Next is a fix for something that's really bothered me for a long time. In the past, when you draw a straight line for a road, you'd see the units of measurement changing. So right now it says 104 meters. In the past, you'd sometimes see that number change, but that's been fixed with this update. And then I wanted to highlight two things that I didn't see in the patch notes that I think are absolutely outstanding. First of all, when you click on a building now, there's a new info view, and it lets you see all the building occupants in a much nicer way. But where this is really amazing is that you can now select an individual citizen, find them, and you don't lose all the information about where they were. So you could find them, look at them, add their life path to your followed citizens, and then go back, click on them again, and you can see all of their household information. Go back, find where they live. It's just really easy to go back and forth now. In the past, this absolutely drove me mad, and it's one of the reasons I didn't want to use the life path. So this is a huge update in my opinion. And it's just much more readable as well. And finally, another quality of life update that was not included in the patch notes is that shortcuts are now shown when you hover over some icons. So for the bulldozer, for instance, I can see B will bring me to the bulldozer tool. For the economy, Z will bring me there. And for the transportation overview, X will bring me there. And it's just really nice to have that there, because I don't like popping into the menu to see what the shortcut is, but that little reminder right there will get me to use the keyboard shortcuts. There have also been a number of audio fixes, things such as several missing sound effects being added into the game, and sound effects that would loop or play inappropriately being fixed. I guess this was a problem with the terraforming tool in particular, where you'd hear the sound of terraforming even after you left the menu on loop for a while in some instances. There have also been fixes for radio stations, such as a delay being added for emergency broadcast audio. So when your forest is burning down, you won't hear about it on loop anymore. A missing talk show host segment has been added to the Smooth Beats radio, and a number of special events have been added to the radio stations as well. So things like when you place the Rockstar Mansion, a celebrity interview is supposed to occur. And when you have certain tourism-related events and criteria met, you're supposed to hear audio such as this one.
More local news today. The Tourism Board just released their latest figures, and somehow the number of visitors to the region fell by over 20% last season.
Well, that's fine by me, Jim. I just love it here. Maybe we'll keep it our little secret.
I like the sound of that, Glenda.
I just love this sort of audio because it makes your city feel more alive. There's another one with free transit too. So when you set your transit to 0, you're supposed to trigger an audio segment. So things like that have now been added into the game. There's also a small grab bag of kind of random fixes. Things such as intersection snapping being stronger. You can kind of feel it pull you to the center of the intersection now and snap to the center, which is really nice. Faster camera movement being added to the game. When you just press the SAD W keys, you'll move normally, but when you hold down Shift, you'll go twice as fast, which is really fun. You now have the ability to invert your X and Y axis on your mouse or controller if that's something that you're interested in. There's an improved tunnel view, and what I think this means is that you're able to see the vehicles as they go through the tunnel. It's kind of translucent. Fire spreading has been dramatically toned down, so you won't have fires rage out of control and burn everything down. And finally, if you're a map maker, this is going to be huge for you. There's finally custom climate support in the map editor. So that means that you can set your climate to be exactly what you want it to be. You don't have to use one of the default climates from the default maps. You can finally adjust everything to your liking. Now, there's one huge elephant in the room. I didn't talk about asset support at all. And that's because this update does not bring asset support just yet. It seems like they are brute forcing the region packs into the game, and honestly, I'm here for that. I think that what we're seeing is movement towards assets without fully getting there just yet. In general, my experience with this update to the game has been really, really good. Things feel rock solid, I haven't experienced crashing, and knock on wood, I haven't seen any new bugs be introduced to the game, so this is a fantastic update in that regard. The one thing that I have noticed is that a number of mods have broken because of this update, but thankfully the modding community is on it, and most of the most popular mods already have updates so that they are compatible with this version of the game. That said, if you have a specific mod that has not been updated, give the modders a little bit of grace. Honestly, most of the time, mods are a labor of love, and they're doing it in their spare time, so they will get to it, they will get it fixed for you, but it can sometimes take a little while. But on that note, for all the mods that have been updated, I want to thank the modders because it's really impressive to be able to launch your game right away after a game update like this, especially when you use a lot of mods in your builds. Now let's talk about the thing that everyone's been waiting to hear about. Region packs. We finally get some new assets, and the region packs are coming out starting next week. The first asset pack that's going to come out is the French asset pack coming out on Monday, October 28th. The German asset pack will come out 2 weeks later on November 11th, and the UK pack will come out 2 weeks after that on November 25th. No word yet on the Japanese, Chinese, Eastern European, or the 2 US packs, but it seems fair to expect that they'll come out every other week, kind of like these packs have been coming out. But do keep in mind, we have the holidays and Colossal Order normally goes on a fairly large break, so there could be a break in between these packs and the ones that come after that. But that's just purely speculation. I have no insider knowledge that I can share, or knowledge at all. It's reasonably no knowledge. I have no knowledge. Now, reasonably, I don't think it's a coincidence that we received an update to the game today or that the region pack release dates were announced today, because tomorrow is Cities Skylines 2's 1-year release anniversary. And with that in mind, I figured it was a good time to reflect back on the last year, talk about where we've been, and talk about where I think we're going. Now, in general, I have many of the same sentiments that you guys have. I was very disappointed in the launch. The performance of the game was absolutely abysmal, not acceptable at all. It's wild to me that the game launched without Paradox mod support, and it's crazy to me that we still don't have asset support. However, the overall trajectory of the game has been positive. It's great to see that performance has improved, that the overall gameplay has improved, and I feel optimistic about the future of the game. Now, if you're a console player, that doesn't mean a whole lot to you. You thought that you'd have the game a year ago, and at this point, you have an indefinite delay. You have no idea when you'll get to play. I just want to let you know, I feel positive about the trajectory of the game on console as well. I think it's a good thing that they are not telling you a release date because they can't hit it. They haven't been able to hit it in the past, and it's better that they just get the game ready and get it out to you when it is ready, rather than promising you a date and missing it once again. And rather than dwelling on the lack of a release date, I think you should look at the notes for this build, for instance, where we see that more controller support has been added to the game, things that hint to the console release, because every single update has had those hints, and every single incremental performance improvement makes the game more optimized for console. So in general, I feel positive about the future of the game for PC and for console. But the question I'm asked all the time is this game worth playing? And is it worth buying? And for that, I've got a couple of answers. If you already have the game, if you have Game Pass, if you've already purchased it, I'd say absolutely give the game a shot. You have nothing to lose. It's a lot of fun. For me, I love this game. It's way better than Cities Skylines 1, in my humble opinion. But if you don't have the game, I would still tell you, try it on Game Pass if you have the ability to do so, or go into it thinking, I'm going to get a large city save from Paradox Mods and give that a shot to see if the performance is good enough for me. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is it going to perform well on your system or not? It feels to me like one of the biggest issues in the game, the lack of assets, is about to be resolved. And there's a path to see lots and lots of assets added to the game in the near future. So again, I'm feeling really positive. And with that, we're gonna leave it here. I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.